Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Barakaha Kwadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. Shabbat Shalom. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'm going to start it off in Joel chapter 2, verse 20. But I will remove far off from you the northern army, which is speaking of the United States military, all branches, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, etc., and will drive him into a land barren and desolate, Western Asia, which people, majorly refer to as the so-called Middle East. This main part is going to be Saudi Arabia, which the U.S. has launched every major war in Western Asia from, with his face toward the East Sea. And when we go to a map of Western Asia, you see Saudi Arabia right here. And to the east, what do you have? The Persian Gulf, and above it, Iran, which to the U.S. and the state of Israel is their main target in Western Asia. And his hinder part, or behind him, toward the utmost sea, the Red Sea, which, over the last couple of years, the U.S. Navy has been engaged with Houthi Yemeni rebels in the Red Sea. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he had done great things. And when, World War III fully pops off, the final and main confrontation is going to be in Western Asia, which is known as the Battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat in Joel chapter 3, the War of Armageddon. And there's going to be a great slaughter of the different heathen nations' militaries, especially the Northern Army's military that's going to be gathered into Western Asia for the Battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. But I opened up the video with this verse to preface this article from finance.yahoo.com titled, Iraq Invites U.S. Firms to Seize Russia's Oil Field Prize. And as we'll see in this article, due to Russia, planning on abandoning a major oil field in Iraq due to U.S. sanctions, the doors being open for U.S. firms to, come and fill the void. And this is just another entanglement further drawing in the United States of America into Western Asia. And we know that the U.S. military is nothing more than the armed, private military of these different corporations and powers that be out here. Look at what just happened with Venezuela. Off the coast, the U.S. military seized a Venezuelan oil tanker, due to it being sanctioned for moving oil, to Iran before. But I thought that whole thing with Venezuela was over narco-terrorists, just complete BS. But again, hey, this is just another example showing, how the U.S. is further being drawn into that region, ultimately for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. But the article reads, Iraq's oil ministry has revealed that it has sent out exclusive invitations to several major U.S. energy firms to develop the country's huge West Qurna 2 oil field following the withdrawal of Russian oil number 2, Lukoil, after Washington ratcheted up sanctions on Moscow. It's a huge turnaround in the trajectory Iraq had been heading towards with Russia and China, making it a massive win for the U.S. and Europe. A senior Legal source who works closely with the U.S. Treasury Department exclusively told oilprice.com last week. Stay tuned. There will be more of this to come, he added. And I'm going to, jump around in this article just to hit the main points. The significance of this sea change in Iraq's geopolitical leanings can barely be overstated. Following the increasing perception among the Iraqi people that the U.S. had overstayed its welcome after it removed Saddam Hussein as leader in 2003, Russia and China, in that order, looked to boost their influence across the country for three key reasons. But I'm going to go to the second reason they mention here. The second, it occupies the geographical heart of the region, lying west of Iran, north of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, east of Jordan and Syria, with its long Mediterranean coastline offering access to further critical sea routes, and south of Turkey, affording an entry into the European continent. So, hey, Iraq is a very strategic area in that region. And remember when we read with his face toward the East Sea, not only to the east do you have the Persian Gulf and Iran, but what do you have to the northeast? Iraq, which is directly landlocked with Iran, and you also have the Tigris and Euphrates rivers up there. And third, it is a key member of the Shia crescent of power geopolitical arc that stretches from Iran through Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, where Shia communities and Iran-backed groups exert significant influence over regional politics, economics, and security. In short, if you are a global superpower or wannabe, Iraq is where you need to be. Now I'm going to jump down to this paragraph right here. The aim of Russia, notice how it keeps mentioning Russia, and China at that point was to push out all Western firms from Iraq, so allowing Iran greater scope to extend its power across the region as a proxy for Moscow and Beijing at the expense of Washington, London, and Brussels, and their former regional allies in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain, among others. As exclusively revealed to oilprice.com some years ago by a very high-ranking official from the Kremlin, by keeping the West out of energy deals in Iraq, the end of Western hegemony in the Middle East will become the decisive chapter in the West's final demise. And while this insider at the Kremlin's talking about it in regards to energy deals, hey, that's a prophetic statement he made, because the true war to end all wars is going to be in the Middle East with the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. And it's going to culminate in nuclear missiles being shot to the ends of the earth and primarily hitting the United States of America. And hey, when America goes, hey, that's pretty much Esau, Edom, the so-called white man's, global rulership going with it. On the other side of the superpower equation, the U.S. and its allies believe breaking the multi-layered links between Iraq and Iran will not only significantly weaken Baghdad's neighbor, but its key sponsors, China and Russia too. The U.S. and Israel also have a further strategic interest in utilizing the Iraqi Kurdistan region as a base for ongoing monitoring operations against Iran, as analyzed extensively in my latest book, The West additionally sees this northern territory as a critical security bridge from NATO member Turkey into the Middle East and beyond. So that's it with this article. But as we can see, major moves continue to be made in Western Asia involving the usual suspects, the U.S., Russia, you got China in there, and, they're talking about Iran and strategic and political movings against them, and even throwing in the state of Israel, which all these countries are major players in the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. But let's get back to these precepts, because remember how it kept mentioning, Russia and them, moving strategically and economically to help out Iran in the region. Well, it's all going to culminate in them helping them militarily as well. This is Ezekiel 38, verse 2. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, which is the biblical name for Russia, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, Russia, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and will bring thee forth and all thine army. And those hooks in the jaws of Gog, bringing them back, is the Most High putting those Russian Edomites back in that old confrontational Soviet Union spirit. And, while, as we read in that article, a major Russian oil firm is abandoning infrastructure there, leaving it open to the U.S., things are going to continue to happen to drag Russia back into the region, just as the U.S. is further getting dragged into the region. As it said, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, their military might. Persia, which is the ancient name for Iran, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer, which is speaking of Turkey, and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Russia being a guard unto these medium and smaller nations out here. And it mentions, Iran, which again, as we were reading in that article, the aim of Russia, Gog, and China at that point was to push out all Western firms from Iraq, so allowing Iran greater scope to extend its power across the region. And remember, it also mentioned Gomer, or Turkey, which, when we go back up here, showing the significance, of Iraq in this region. It occupies the geographical heart of the region, lying west of Iran, north of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, east of Jordan and Syria, with its long Mediterranean coastline offering access to further critical sea routes, and south of Turkey, affording an entry into the European continent. And, as it also says, and third, it is a key member of the Shia crescent of power geopolitical arc that stretches from Iran through Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, where Shia communities and Iran-backed groups exert significant influence over regional politics, economics, and security. So, Iraq and, Iran are, have a very significant Shia base in them, which, If you were allied with them, that would be a major, you know, what's that word I'm looking for? That'd be a major ally to have in that region with all the, resources that they can bring to bear. But I'm going to go to the second part where it's talking about Turkey. The West additionally sees this northern territory as a critical security bridge from NATO member Turkey into the Middle East and beyond. So we're hearing all about Iran in this article, Russia, Turkey, and what did it also mention? The U.S. and Israel have also a further strategic interest in utilizing the Iraqi Kurdistan region as a base for ongoing monitoring operations against Iran. And also, on the other side of the superpower equation, the U.S. and its allies believe breaking the multi-layered links between Iraq and Iran will not only significantly weaken Baghdad's neighbor, but its key sponsors, China and Russia, too. And we know, according to prophecy, that the 1948ers in the Holy Land, those Amalekite Edomites, the Ishas, are going to do something to foment a war against Iran, and it's going to drag in the U.S. on their side, but also on the side of Iran, Gog to be a guard under Persia. This is Jeremiah 49, verse 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of Yahweh that he had taken against Edom, you so-called white people, you Americans, British, Russians, Europeans, the 1948ers, and his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out, the 1948ers in the Holy Land. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. And like I just said, something's going to happen, which, over the last couple of weeks and months, you've been hearing about renewed military strikes, joint military strikes from the U.S. and Israel on Iran. And, back during the summer, you had Operation Midnight Hammer. Well, these things are going to continue to escalate until the big one pops off, which is going to fully draw in the U.S. and, NATO in on the side of the 1948ers, but on the side of Iran, Gog, or Russia. And as I've been saying throughout the video, this is going to culminate into the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, the main and final part of World War III. But this is Joel chapter 3, verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, the heathen nations. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. And, during, what was it, back in June, the 12 or the 14-day war, when the 1948ers did strikes on Iran, Iran retaliated and showed that we can touch you 1948ers, which, decades prior, you wouldn't have seen anything significant like that, because they knew that the U.S. was, at their back. But with the U.S. weakening and just Western hegemony in general, these smaller nations are starting to really, buck up to them. And, Iran ultimately knows that if anything major happens, their big brother Russia is going to come to their aid. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. And those mighty ones are the death angels of the Most High, holding back this great destruction, waiting to get the go-ahead to fully release it, which is going to happen after the mark of the BEAST in Revelation 13, verses 16 to 18 is rolled out and mandatorily implemented, which is the micro C-hip implant in the hand or in the forehead. And that's another front all this talk of digital IDs, CBDCs, Neuralinks, that's right around the corner as well. Let the heathen be wakened. The United States of America or the Northern Army, Gog or Russia, Gomer or Turkey, the 1948ers, Iran, these other Western Asian nations, these NATO nations. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, which in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shaphat, or Yahweh's judgment. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. And when you go to the first couple of verses of this chapter, you'll see what the ultimate reason for these nations being gathered down there for is for what you did against the true children of Israel, which are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today. And at the top of the list of these heathens that have afflicted the children of Israel, as pursuant to Psalms 83, are you Edomites. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. And with everything going on, globally and geopolitically, we can see that this day in the valley of decision, the day of Yahweh, is getting nearer and nearer. So that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere, Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babol, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time,